Hey everyone, I'm meteorologist Mark Collins, and thanks for checking in with us here on Facebook. We're going to kind of recap the hurricane season here and try to make it quick for you. But I want to actually take you back before last year when we were looking at a very quiet period from 2006 through 2015. Notice not one storm impacted Florida. They were all mostly recurvers out over the Caribbean, over the Atlantic, or they tracked through the Caribbean. Then last year, things started to wake up a bit, right? We all remember Irma, or Matthew, which moved right off our coastline, and Hermine was the first hurricane to actually make landfall there in Florida since Wilma. So we started to see the season wake up, and then what did we have this year? Well, we had quite a few storms. In fact, when you take a look at the amount of named storms, we were well above average for this time of year. Even NOAA in Colorado State, they were predicting a very active season, and they got that right, but no one foresaw how many major storms. You look at Colorado State, they were forecasting 3 storms when we wound up with 6. So this will definitely be a season to go down in the record books here with the extent of the strong storms. September was nearly a record accumulated cyclone energy month, and we just started checking off all these names. So let's go through some of them, the more memorable ones here. And you know, there wasn't one spot along the Gulf that didn't get tropical storm force winds. That's all these areas here in pink. And these areas in red were the spots that had hurricane force winds. So we had Harvey, Cindy, Nate, Emily. That was that quick little storm, tropical storm that formed along the front, and Irma. And what we saw this year was a significant shift in the Bermuda Ridge, which tend to steer storms through the Caribbean basin and into Florida. So the Caribbean really got rocked hard with these storms that sometimes miss the Lesser Antilles. This strong ridge set up and pushed all the storms into Florida, whereas what we have seen in the past are a lot of these storms staying out over the open Atlantic due to a weaker ridge. Now, some of the research which has been going into looking at these features and these setups are thinking that we might see more of a higher, more latitude tracking type hurricane setup in the future, since water temperatures have been warming in the Atlantic. And we certainly saw that in September we were very warm, not just in the sea surface but around the globe. The areas that were cooler were due to the La Nina. That's what we're in right now, but we had warmer air temperatures over the African continent. That allowed these tropical waves to form over the Sahel, or the Congo, and then roll out into the Atlantic. And as we know, those tropical waves are the seedlings for storms. Also, we had light wind shear through the Atlantic basin. That means that when you have below average shear, you tend to see a lot of storms forming in that area. And so we saw some of the strongest, most easternmost hurricanes on record, like Irma, like Ophelia, the furthest north and the farthest eastern tracking major hurricane on record. You can see Irma had a very impressive eye there, and this is Maria as it rocked Puerto Rico and came right off the coastline. What was impressive too was the new geostationary GOES 16 satellite data that actually looks at cloud to cloud and cloud to ground lightning. This is something that we have never been able to see before, and the plots of lightning are usually due to sensors over land, but we were able to see, I can't loop that for you, but we were able to see the lightning from space. And we also saw how the lightning intensified right before storms started to strengthen. We saw that with Harvey. And this was interesting too. Harvey brought over 60 inches of rain, portions of Houston, and look at all the sediment flowing out into the Gulf of Mexico. So a very record-breaking rainfall that added up to what is estimated to be $190 billion worth of damage just out of Harvey alone. So why was Harvey so wet? Well, you take a look at Hurricane Kenneth out here in the Pacific, and there was this tropical connection, almost like a subtropical atmospheric river flowing into the Gulf. And this was well before Harvey even made it into the Gulf. Here is the remnants of Harvey, which is over the Caribbean. So already the Gulf basin was primed with a lot of water vapor in the air. Then Harvey actually re-intensified once it got into the Bay of Campeche, and rapidly intensified as well and became a major hurricane. Ophelia way out here, this is where you tend to see all the major storms in pink over the Caribbean basin. Notice how Ophelia was an anomaly, being out here over what's typically the colder waters of the Atlantic, but we didn't see cold waters there. In fact, here you see the eye of Ophelia, and Ophelia was so strong that it actually sucked up dust off the coastline of Africa, and that's the way it looked out over England with that unusual sky that was all the dust in the atmosphere, and water temperatures were about 2 degrees above normal there due to the anomalies, the warmer than normal water. And when you get the warm water, you get these storms that really intensify. And a better way to looking at how strong storms are is to look at the ACE, the accumulated cyclone energy. It's kind of like on an outboard motor on your engine, you see like 100 or 200. Well, that's the horsepower, the strength of the engine. ACE is when you take a look at the winds and you look at every 6 hours, you add that up, you take the square of it and divide by 1,000, you come up with these numbers here at 175. That is really high here. And when you look at the amount of ACE over all the storms, 2017 was around 224. So that puts it in one of the top 10 years for strong hurricane seasons. And so the season is over, and as we went through November, everything finally came to an end. And that's typically a very quiet time for us, since there have only been 3 hurricanes to make landfall in the United States in November. So Hurricane Irma will be remembered for us as record flooding in the St. Johns River, and all of that was due to the strong nor'easter that we had and a powerful rain band that came along as Irma moved through. But remember, Irma came ashore over South Florida, 350 miles away from us near Naples, and also passed by us with tropical storm force winds. And really, we didn't get any sustained hurricane force winds, and we had all that damage in our river. Let's just be hopeful that it didn't make a direct hit, and let's hope that we don't see a direct hit in the future. All right, that's a quick recap on this hurricane season. Thanks for watching.